Hi everyone, welcome to Module 11, where we talk about one of my favorite aspects of logic and critical thinking, which is identifying fallacies. What are fallacies and how do they occur? We're going to spend the next couple of modules thinking about fallacies. A fallacy is a defect in an argument. So it's not just false premises, but it's some sort of mistake or error in reasoning. And they can take the form of an illusion that makes a bad argument actually look good. So that means that sometimes people commit fallacies on purpose, deliberately. And now that you're learning them, you're going to figure out how. You'll identify them all the time. How do we identify a fallacy? Sometimes it can be something that just doesn't belong and it's obvious. Other times it can be emotional and something that kind of tricks you into concluding something or agreeing with someone. Let me show you. So fallacies can be both formal and informal. We'll spend the most of our time studying informal fallacies. The formal fallacies have to do with how we compose them and errors in the actual order of your premises and your conclusions. So if you put things in the wrong order in deductive arguments, you're often going to have formal fallacies. So think of form for informal. So formal fallacies are describing deductive errors in reasoning, whereas informal fallacies, again, what we'll spend the most time on, have to do with inductive arguments. Before we go on to the inductive arguments, informal fallacies, let me just show you what does a formal fallacy look like, okay? As I said, an error in the structure or the order. In this categorical syllogism, if I say all Southwestern College students take classes, Lorna takes classes, therefore she must be a Southwestern College student, what do you notice about that? Premise 2, could it be that she's going to school at Grossmont College or Mesa or Harvard? It could. Just because I found someone who takes classes doesn't mean she's in that group. So this is a way that the order is messed up. I should have said, all Southwestern College students take classes. Lorna is a Southwestern College student, therefore she takes classes. But if you switch it in the wrong way, it becomes an error. It's a fallacy, because certainly by just saying Lorna, we don't know where she's gone to school. Inductive arguments, on the other hand, there are lots of them, and some might tell you there are 100, other might say dozens or 40 or 50. We're going to concentrate on probably 15 to 20. Some of them I will give to you as options for your group project to define and find examples of. And then there are other ones I'm going to talk about. I think they're all fun and important and good to watch out for, but we only have so much time, so I won't make you learn 100 of them. We're going to start with fallacies of relevance. Relevance means something that's related to, correlates with. A fallacy of relevance means you're making an error and you're not making the correct connection. So they have premises that are logically irrelevant to a conclusion. But they often work in convincing people of certain claims because they're psychologically convincing. In other words, there's emotional appeal. And you guys will see what I mean. As soon as we start studying one after another, you'll say, wow, someone was really tugging on my heartstrings or appealing to me emotionally, and that's how it works. Just because people can identify fallacies don't mean they don't work. In other words, lots of people use bad reasoning or fallacious reasoning, and it works. That's because we're typically not taking enough time to think about our emotions first. we need to put the emotions aside. We need to first think about our logic. So as I'm going through these, think about that. One of the first fallacies we'll talk about is appeal to force. And I'm giving you these Latin as well. Force. Appeal to force is argumentum ad baculum, or in Latin it means appeal to the stick. Does that mean someone always hurts you? No, it means they're going to coerce you into agreeing to something or accepting a conclusion with a threat of harm. Threat of harm could be physical or psychological or other things, financial. Roxana, I know you're going to carry my books to class if you want an A. So I'm thinking the implied conclusion is, therefore, you're going to do it. If I'm the teacher and I have power over you, that's an appeal to force fallacy. Okay? You're not going to get an A if you don't carry my books. Lots of people use appeal to force, but we just don't always recognize it because we get so nervous. Mr. Smith, or Mrs. Smith, I know you will not report my improprieties because if you do, you will be fired. So you might see your boss doing something awful, but do you typically report it? Maybe you won't because they have power over you. That is the implied argument, even though it's a fallacy, that's the implied argument of an appeal to force argument is, I can hurt you. In this case, financially, right? Someone can hurt you in terms of your credit, your integrity, your reputation, or they can literally hurt you physically. Appeal to the stick. This diagram shows that the arguer threatens the reader or listener, and by doing so, assumes that you'll agree with their conclusion. But remember, it's not always threatening physical harm. Here's a picture of The Godfather, a very old movie, but there's a lot of appeal to force fallacy or appeal to the stick, the real physical stuff in there. So you've seen probably other mobster movies that have similar appeal to force fallacies in them. They're effective, but they're not good reasoning. Here's another one that's very emotional. Appeal to pity. This is a picture of a clown. He has a violin. He's got a super sad look on his face. This fallacy also occurs using emotion, but in that it tries to get the listener to accept a conclusion by evoking pity or sadness. Now, not all arguments that evoke pity are always fallacies. Some have good reason. But the one that says, oh, you should do this because otherwise this sad thing will happen, is an appeal to pity. Let me give you an example. And here's that in construction as well, sort of a diagram. Arguer evokes pity, assumes the listener will accept the conclusion. Okay? Your Honor, I admit that I declared 13 children as dependents when I only have 2. I realize that was wrong. But if you find me guilty of tax evasion, my reputation will be ruined. I'll probably lose my job. My wife will not be able to have the operation she needs, and my kids will starve. Do you see how all of these things here are saying, I want to make you sad. I want you to feel pity on me. That's how that occurs. That fallacy occurs when you do accept that as, oh, I'm going to do what they say, even though it's unreasonable. In this case, maybe the judge doesn't make the person pay their taxes. But if you're doing things unreasonably, or you're accepting an argument just because you feel sad for someone, they've tricked you. We've all done this probably. Professor, if you don't pass me in this course, I will lose my scholarship and I won't be able to eat. Surely you will pass me in this class, because even though I only have a 35%. You see the little sad emoji face here? Do you think that I fall for that argument? One, it's a fallacy, and two, it's just not a good argument. If I'm using my logic and critical thinking, I'm not falling for this. Even if it's true, I can't do that. It's not fair to all the other students, okay? So those are some examples of emotion that's involved in fallacies. I have 3 others I'm going to have you think about. I will put up definitions for, but they're really easy to spot, and a lot of them are in advertising. They have to do with making people either feel elite, like better than everyone else, jump on the bandwagon, in other words, be together with everyone, or they appeal to someone's vanity, like they want to look good or feel good. So those are the arguments that are very much tied to emotion. And you'll be thinking about these and seeing them everywhere now that you've learned them. Again, I'm going to have you guys define these and give examples in discussion board. Thanks for being here, and I hope you're having fun.